Opposed? Okay, meeting's open, and please stand for the pledge of allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice. So first item on the agenda is public input. On your seats, there are the rules for public input. I'm going to give a quick synopsis. Any group or organization wishing to address the board must identify a single spokesperson. Speakers have up to 3 minutes. Speakers will address remarks to the president. Speakers will conduct themselves in a civil and respectful manner. Speakers will not address personnel or students. If a speaker wants to speak a second time, they may speak at public input too. And the board president has the right to discontinue public input at any time. I'd also like to add that there's a sheet of paper at the podium. Please print your name for the record if you're going to speak. So at this time, is there anyone who would like to speak at public input number 1? No? Vinny, do you have anybody online who would like to speak?
No.
Okay,
I actually have one hand up.
okay, great.
Janice, you're allowed to talk.
Hi, this is Janice Dono. Happy New Year. I wanted to bring up the public outreach meeting that you had right before Christmas in the middle of Hanukkah and ask what the next one of these meetings will entail. The school board had said that it would answer all questions that were sent in. That did not happen. We were all asked for addresses, which some of us were not comfortable giving, and I think should be stricken from any requirement going forward to ask questions or speak at these public outreach meetings. And then speaking about addresses, it has come to my attention that there is a member of the school board that does not any longer reside in Sag Harbor. And that person is not eligible to serve any longer, and that is Brian DeCessa. And I'd like for you to address that as well. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Janice, first of all, let me set the record very clear. Any emails or any letters that were sent to the district office, to Mary Dunchak, Jeff Nichols, or the Board of Education were read, and actually read in entirety, to where they weren't even questions, they were people's views. But out of respect for you taking the time, we absolutely read every word that was written to us. So I want to be extremely clear on that note. As far as addresses, we did that to make sure that we had people that were in our community. And we're sorry that we felt that that wasn't proper, but we felt that it was important. And as far as our board members, Brian, do you want me to answer it, or would you like me to?
I don't know where you think I live, Janice, but I most 100% live in the district. So I don't know where you're getting the wrong information from.
Anyway,
So,
I think we've answered those questions. Jeff, would you like to add anything to that?
No, just that, just to reiterate that the questions that were to be answered at the forum were submitted to a link that was sent home. We gathered all the information, were all the questions that were submitted by the deadline that was in the letter. And all of those questions, as you just stated, were addressed during the meeting.
Almost to the point of where they were almost, some were essays. and we still felt that we needed to read each of them in its entirety, and we did. So I feel confident with that. Is there any other? No?
I'm gonna cover another point that Ms. Denard, it was a
Okay.
question,
Great.
but I can address it within my superintendent's report.
Well, you're up, Ed.
Is there anybody else for public input?
Well, I had already gone into public input and there was nobody, but Leah has just walked in. So if you'd like to speak, come up to the podium, please. Write your name and you have 3 minutes.
I'm sorry, I was teaching a class at the Children's Museum.
Nice.
I normally can't come on Monday nights at all, unless I'd be here much more often to bother you all. But it's the Latino kids and families at the museum need me a little bit more. I continue concerned about the lack of creative conversation about the development of Marston Street properties. And I'm concerned not because, I mean, ultimately, do I want a bathroom across the street from my front door? Not too much. But the issue is, for me, there's so much inequity, educational and social inequity in our district. And it's not even clear how much per kid we're spending on the development of the field across the street. When there are kids who come to the food pantry at the Children's Museum and the Sag Harbor Food Pantry on a weekly basis, and I know they don't have enough to eat. And I know that there are kids who are living in couples, even in our very wealthy, now extremely wealthy community. And that, to me, is really troubling about the choice morally we make when we spend so much money with so little dialogue about what the district's priorities are. And that's basically all I have to say, because I turn it over in my mind and it doesn't make much sense. Now, if I hear soon, and I hope to hear it, that we're going to have community decision-making committee that's alive and well. I was on one very briefly, but I realized it was not a creative process particularly, and it's probably because the way the law is structured, which is also another pain. But there are ways to do things. And so channeling dialogue into one stream is maybe not one of them. And not really looking wide at a widespread view of community needs is another one. And there are many. Even though we're wealthy, so many people, you all know, there are women sitting at this table whose kids will not be able to afford to buy a house in the community. And in fact, my own children can't afford it, and we're pretty well to do. The big house across the street from Vinny and next door to Evie Romano sold for $6.5 million.
30 seconds, Leah.
Yes, and so that's all I have to say, but we need to widen our rural perspective. Thank you.
Any other public input that we have at this point? Good. Great, okay, thank you. Mr. Nichols, you have the superintendent's report, you said.
Sure, pretty brief one. I just wanted to briefly touch upon Marsden. We've already been over the fact that on December 20th, we had our first forum. It was pretty well attended, I thought. And we said that we would go for an hour and a half, but that if we had time, we would answer questions from the community. We actually ran over because we realized there were so many questions that were asked as part of the official schedule that at the end, we didn't really have a lot of time for questions. So we extended the meeting another 20 or 30 minutes, and I thought it was a worthwhile evening. What we said was that we would consider having several more of these forums, 2 or 3 in some total, as well as considering a survey. And I know that a couple of board members and I met to discuss what that next forum would look like. The latter half of next week. So we're in the process of setting that up. tentatively, one of the things that we were talking about was exploring the different surface options. Having some objective presenters talking about pertinent factors and considering what those surface choices should be. Environmental factors, liability factors, safety factors as it relates to student health, those such things. So as those plans are formalized, which hopefully will be later this week, we'll put something out to the community. Go from there. That was pretty much it.
Great. Good.
I do want to say, I should have started out by thanking everybody from the community who participated in the forum. We definitely know that we'll do our best to answer the questions as they come. And obviously, not everybody in the community is happy with some of the, or I guess the direction, if you will, that the Marsden lots are going in. And we do our best to explain and give some historical context as to why it's going in that direction. But again, I do want to thank all the community residents who participated and would encourage them to do so the next one as well.
I agree. Thank you. Okay, moving on to principals report. Move on.
Good evening, I'm Matthew Malone, the elementary principal. We had a great return from the holiday. Everyone came back with some new energy and a lot of excitement. Community on some new happenings. Our club program, which we spoke about before the winter recess, is a real robust offering for our 3rd, 4th, and 5th graders, providing a lot of great enrichment opportunities. And this week we begin the session 2 of the club cycle. So this is a chance for students to get involved in different programs that we might not have accessed in the fall. Approximately close to 90% of our 3rd, 4th, and 5th graders participate in at least one of those clubs. So that kind of just speaks to the involvement of the kids. It's great. We're also really, really happy that we're able to get back to the YMCA for the swim program. It's been a mainstay in Sarah Carter. Sean Crowley, who retired a number of years ago, one of our longtime phys ed teachers, worked with the team at the Y could be close to 20 years ago to get that off the ground. And children at the elementary level would get to the pool, have an assessment done on their swimming abilities, and then receive some instruction, maybe just enough to get them comfortable in and around the water. And hopefully it would become an avenue to get their families connected to either the Y or some of the other opportunities in the community for swim instruction. In addition, there are a lot of kids who are comfortable in the water, and their time at the Y allowed them to really find the love of swimming. I've noticed over the years the swim program here on the East End has really grown. So, I think it just speaks to the importance of this program. Because of COVID, we haven't had it for a few years. So we're getting back. Thanks to Mr. Russo and our team, we're starting it this Wednesday. And some of our 4th graders will head down. And each of the classes will visit the Y 3 times. So we just thank the board and the community for supporting that. It's a real important program. Good to see it started. Good. Thank you.
Any questions for tomorrow? Ms. Carrier.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Brittany Carrier. I'm the Pearson Middle High School principal. We are excited to be back in the new year. Our kids are excited for the second half of the year to begin. Next Friday, some events that are coming up that we're excited to come back. Next Friday is our annual Spirit Night. It's going to be full-fledged again, so we're excited about that. The girls basketball team will be playing at 5:15. Boys will be playing at 7:15. A special thanks to our Pearson Booster Club, who hosts the event and works with our athletic director, Mr. Tardif. Another exciting event is our middle school musical. It's one of my favorite events of the year. It really creates a middle school community and creates culture as well. And it's always fun to see our kids up on the stage. This year, the production is Beauty and the Beast. That will be showing from January 27th to January 29th. Ticket sales will be coming up. We will be letting the community know. And then also, as I said, it's starting this is like the beginning of the end for our high school and middle school students. So in the upcoming weeks, next week and the following week from January 17th to January 27th is our midterm schedule. So we end out the year. And that's what's going on at middle high school.
Any questions? I'm excited for the school day.
That's Spirit, that's this Friday or next?
Next Friday.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to the consent agenda. May I have a motion for consent agenda items 6.2 through 6.17? John, your second. Alex, we're doing this all remotely tonight. All in favor?
Aye.
Oh, we're not doing
Any
it.
discussion, sorry.
No, I shouldn't have my computer. We're not
No,
doing
no,
it.
no, yeah, wait, yeah.
Aye.
Great, that's unanimous. I have a update on policy committee tonight. Yes,
So.
oh, okay, great.
I'll have a better update in a couple of days when I'm gonna connect with the universities, but I spent some time over the break. Going through all the files, and I think, but for knowing what business policies we need to go over and submit, I have my head around it now. Which reports will be in touch soon.
Any items for discussion? Discuss? No? Okay. That brings us back then to public input number 2. And again, the same rules for public input number 1 apply for public input number 2. Is there anyone who would like to speak at public input number 2? Sure, come on up.
Is this concerning the Morrison Street property?
If you'd like to come up, here, I mean, concerning, if you'd like to come here and ask us a question, I don't know what you mean by concerning. You can ask us questions if you'd like, we can try to answer them.
Wrong way. I don't know the protocol of the meeting, so
That's okay.
I'm asking is proposition 2. Marsden concerning the Marsden Street property.
You can find out whatever you want.
Yeah, whatever you want, yeah, you can ask us whatever you'd like.
Where do we stand with it as
Okay,
financially and moving forward?
okay, great. Jeff, you got that one?
Yeah, so the
You just speak
initial,
up a little bit louder.
Yeah.
so
Okay,
the initial,
yes, exactly, yeah.
so the initial financial structure was that the town of Southampton Community Preservation Fund was authorized to contribute $6 million towards the purchase. And that $6 million was towards the purchase of 4 lots on the north side of Marsden Street. Total purchase price of those 4 lots was $8,575,000. So $6 million from the town, $2,575,000 district. And the vote that occurred authorized the district to access that $2,575,000 from existing reserve funds, plus an additional $700,000, for a total of $3,275,000. That's $50,000 in closing costs, for a total of $3,325,000 for the school district's part of the 4 lots on the west side of Marsden Street, and an additional lot on the south side of Marsden Street that the district was purchasing by itself, not in combination with the community preservation fund. Where we stand right now is we are in contract for the 1 lot for $700,000. That lot is contingent upon the sale of the other 4 lots going through. And in order for that sale to go through, the town board of the town of Southampton needs to hold a hearing and to formally vote to approve. So in late June, June 24th, 2022 to be exact, we received a letter stating that the town board had authorized a contribution of $6 million. Even though we've received that letter, it still needs to be voted on by the town board. That's what
To approve it.
we're correct.
So 3 million is coming from the school reserves
3,325,000 to be exact.
and 6 million is coming from the CPF.
Correct.
Does Sag Harbor Village Board have anything to do with it?
No,
So when will you know when it's approved by Southampton Town Trustees?
initially, we were under the impression that it was going to be early October. There's been some delays. We're hoping that there'll be a resolution this month.
Will the public,
Because
will the public be notified?
they will.
And there'll be another vote after the Southampton town approves. There has to be another Sag Harbor vote to approve the actual
community
service
vote
for the
like the
bond
vote?
and the service of the field.
Similar as the vote before.
Yes.
Different though, different in that the initial vote, which was back on November 3rd, was to authorize the school district to access the funds that are currently held in reserve to purchase the property along with the funds from the town of Southampton. The vote that Ms. Sobey is talking about is if it goes through, at some point, we're gonna have to go back out to the community and say, we now own these lots, but we need to develop them into athletic fields. And there's costs associated with that. We have to put that out to the voters in form of a bond.
So all this is just to make the purchase and nothing more,
Thus far, correct.
except the first lot. Where does the first lot that you're purchasing for 700,000 stand? That's just purchase money also.
We're in contract for that lot, but it's contingent upon the other one selling. So if the other
Okay.
lots don't go through, we don't get it.
So everything to this point is just for purchase. Okay. Thank you.
Well,
Thank you.
Thank
Can you
you.
just write your name on that paper for me? Thank you. Anyone else for public input? No, I have something. Thank you.
Is that it on Morrison Street?
Yes, that's it. It's not on the agenda.
Thanks for your help.
Yeah, thank you.
I'm Sudhir Venkatesh, parent of 2 children in the district. I just had a couple of questions about, I guess it's about some of the development, but maybe some suggestions, because I think that as someone who came into this agnostic about the redevelopment of the athletic fields and was really grateful for you all sharing information, generally felt pretty supportive. I think there are a lot of folks wondering why it's still taking so long and that it's not in your control. I think it would be, I think the forums that you're holding are great. I think there are the exchange here about whether someone lives in, on the board lives in the district or not, I think shows you just how much misinformation there is about nearly everything in this, and particularly with respect to some of the issues around the development. I think that there are a couple, in just talking to residents and canvassing people in the next forum or thereafter, it might be good to just find a way to share some information on a couple of things. Because I think they ultimately just get in the way and just erode some trust. One is that there are so many misperceptions of the prospect of a turf field. I've read about 100, 120 different studies, and I can find you as many that say that it's good, it's bad, it's very, very difficult. The only truths that I can figure out are that it's evolving. The science is changing. There are structured turf, structured grass fields that you could create. There are all sorts of options. And I think it might be nice if there was somebody who's a builder, just built these kinds of fields, to come in and talk about some of the challenges. That might be really kind of helpful perspective, somebody to ask, what are the trade-offs that one makes? So you can go into it for practical sense. The second issue that keeps coming up is the community uses and what different people could use. And I think it might be nice to mention a survey. It'd be really great to know what different segments of the community could do with the field, do with the area. There's so much potential. It'd be nice to get some signal from that kind of early on, especially people who aren't in the school system, who aren't school children, and what would they do with it? And the third is, I think there's a lot of people have questions about what the impact is with the relationship to Mashkashmere Park. And I know that you don't want to tangle too many things, but I think some things are just worth addressing, even if you're not representatives of the park, such as the fact that the city does not, the town does not own the park. It's not a public entity that does not receive
30 seconds.
taxpayer money, et cetera. Because I think there's some concerns that if you were to use this field, that money would be taken away from the park, et cetera. So there are ways in which hopefully that the survey that you use can clear up a lot of information. And if there's anything that some of us can do to motivate this to get to a public hearing, we'd really love to. So, thank you.
Great, thank you. Is there anyone else in the audience for public input? Steve, do you have anybody online for public input?
You have one, Ms. Janice Benoit.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes.
I just want to point out again that it is really almost impossible to hear when you are in this meeting remotely, and the speaker who just spoke, I could barely hear anything he said or members of the board. Just so you know, it's almost impossible. I have my volume all the way up on my computer. So if there's something you can do to alleviate that problem now and going forward, it's really, really difficult. I was glad to hear you finally say if it goes through, because the fact of the matter is that it has not gone through, and the CPF tentatively in a letter agreed to these monies, thinking that what they were getting was a park, as I think we all are aware. So the Southampton trustees have to vote this money, and then you're going to go back to the Sag Harbor public to get, we don't even know how many millions more dollars to develop this into something that I think sounds so horrific in my imagination, which of course you won't tell us what it is that you're actually planning. And I don't need an explanation as to why you haven't done it thus far and aren't doing it right now. But that, as the last speaker, I believe, said, has led to such an erosion of trust of this board that I don't see how you can keep doing it the same way. I do want to also point out that the 3M company about 2 weeks ago announced that it was stopping making these artificial turf materials, and it was taking it out of all supply chain products that it makes across the company because of how much pushback it is getting, because there are so many scientific studies that now say that artificial turf is a disaster for the environment. Just what we need in this time of global warming, a plastic field. And even the city of Boston recently announced that it was not going to allow artificial turf anymore. So I don't think that this is like little glimmerings around the edge. I think that it is a huge issue. It will not be resolved by saying you're not going to do artificial turf, because there are still all of these other issues, such as a 17-foot retaining wall that will have to be built in order to have a field in this spot because of flooding that occurs there. So I just wanted to get that into the record here. I'm certain that you don't agree. And I also would like to point out that the way you say my name, let me just finish. The way you say my name is Dono, as if it was D-O-N-O, not Donod. So I would appreciate that going forward too.
Thank you. Have a nice evening. I'm sorry, but we really do need to keep it to 3 minutes and be respectful of all people. I'm sorry if I pronounced her name incorrectly. There's anybody else there on? Zoom?
That was it.
Okay, great. May I have a motion to convene into a proposed executive session to discuss contracts?
So moved.
Just sorry, did we actually do a motion on the points here, or did we move straight into? public? Just checking. about this. Oh, we did? Okay, sorry.
Remember, I was teasing Alex, we didn't have to worry about voting.
Okay.
Yeah, no, I did.
I'm away.
No, it's okay.
I'll second Brian.
Okay. And you seconded that. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Just to say, we're going to executive session. There will be no business conducted after we resume. The meeting will just close. Thank you.